What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to another live oil painting session. Remember my streaming schedules: 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Wednesdays will be oil paint, Thursdays will be acrylic, and Fridays will be pastel. So let's go ahead and just get started here. I'm going to start drawing with a little bit of raw umber. So this palette's been in the freezer since last time, so it's been in the freezer for about a week. So the umber is trying to dry a little bit, so I'm just gonna have to deal with that for now. My chat seems to be working on my iPad. It's not working on my computer still, so at least I'll be able to respond from my iPad. That's always a good thing. So placement of the head is going to be about right here. This is a reference from Unsplash, nothing special here. I did try to get some of my billiard friends to let me paint a portrait of them, but wasn't able to get any pictures just yet. So still going to be painting people from the internet for now. So I thin out the paint with just a little bit of solvent. The model is wearing a hat. I'm pretty sure this is the same model from a demo that I did in 2020 or maybe 2021. Not sure. But anyway, this is a simple start. Hey Beanpot, welcome. I'm so glad the chat seems to be working. Seems to be the key observation here. So we'll see how it goes. My drawing is going to be rather simple, not too much. I'm going to get into planes relatively quickly. I'm going to try to take this painting a tad bit further. I may have thinned the paint out a little too much, so it's starting to drip there, but that's alright. A loose and simple start is always good. Placement for the bottom of the nose, the mouth roughly about there. Eyes are gonna fit over there. And that's good enough. I don't need a super realistic drawing for this kind of simple start. Maybe a few more little changes. Hey, Peace Rose. So not sure if I can read your name properly, Banerjee. How do you make a makeshift DIY palette for oil paint? Does a white ceramic plate work? And how to store them? Don't have a fridge. You don't have to store them in a fridge. I mean, you can keep them in like a plastic Tupperware container. Just take your paints off of here, put it in a plastic Tupperware container, and seal it. As long as the oxygen is blocked, then it should be just fine. And yeah, you could use a ceramic plate. You could use almost anything really for a oil painting palette. This is a piece of glass, but this is marketed as a paint palette. But really, you could just use any kind of surface, piece of glass, piece of metal. You can get a piece of wood and apply some polyurethane finish to it. You could use that. So really, oil painting. And of course acrylic painting as well, and water mixable oil paint. You could use almost anything as a palette, to be honest, as long as it, like, one thing I wouldn't use as a palette is something that absorbs, like a canvas. Like, try not to use that as a palette, or like just like a drawing board. That wouldn't be a good palette just because it absorbs. So anything that doesn't absorb the oil is going to be just fine. Hey Susan, hello. Hey Mauve, welcome. Thanks for tuning in from Scotland. So this is the second week, everyone. Second week for the schedule. Today is oil painting. Tomorrow is acrylic. And Friday is pastel. I have been experimenting a lot with the pastels. Even tried to use some different pastels, but we'll get into that on Friday. Alright, simple start. That's all I need. I'll just use same type of brush, but different. So same size and everything. These are bristle brushes. So the yellow ochre is actually trying to dry. So that's interesting. So remember, even though this is in a freezer throughout the week, the paints can still dry. So be aware of that because it's oxygen. It depends on how often you open your freezer. So I must have opened the freezer a lot for the paints to start to dry. Okay, so now we'll start to draw with some values. And this is just a basic skin color that I'm going to use to draw with, titanium white. Used yellow ochre, but it's most dry, cadmium yellow, a little bit of blue just to kill off the yellow, and of course some red to make it a little bit more pink. Now the color is it's a little off. I'm gonna see if I can adjust my LED light here. So that's why it's important to have an LED light that you can adjust the color temperature. There we go. Tad bit better. Hey Banerjee. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you've been following the videos for a while. I've been on YouTube for a while now. Not that long, but it's been since 2017. Always evolving though. I mean, mainly the channel is dedicated to painting portraits in oil paint, but we're going to be expanding with acrylic and pastel, depending on if you like it or not. If you don't want me to do them, then I'll just stick with oil paint, that's fine. So different pressure makes this less bright. We're using the tone of the canvas. This is just a 9x12 cotton canvas that was toned with lead primer a while ago. Just painting over a bunch of old paintings. So just a little blur for where the mouth is going to fit is totally fine for now. So this is how I'm going to work with simple shapes. And you can even do this with acrylic as well, now that I've been exploring with it a little bit more. You just have to layer wet over dry, whereas with here, you're going to have to layer wet into wet. Bean pot? No, these are not water mixable. Oh wow, it's been since 2019 here. Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, these are not the water mixable. If you want, I can do one that's water mixable later, but it's basically the same thing. One thing that's different is I don't actually have all of these colors in water mixable. So that's one difference, but the handling itself of the paint is going to be roughly about the same. So you can do this with water mixable. My online classes, we just started a new semester today, and I have basically redone my earliest lessons so that they can be done in acrylic, oil paint, water mixable oil paint, or pastel. So come to find out, you can do a lot with almost any material. Hey Catherine, welcome. Yeah, I'm glad that you're wondering if these are water mixable, because that's a good thing. That means I keeping you on your toes. But yeah, mostly we'll be doing for the oil painting Wednesdays traditional, unless you want me to do one that's water mixable, which is totally fine. I could do that too. Now we're carving out some of the planes. And this is not so easy with pastels, let me tell you. You have to layer them. And it's something that I'm getting used to. And I'm really, oh my gosh, I'm really happy to be able to just mix it on the canvas and just apply it here and not have to think twice. But it's always good to learn a different material. I have two whites here. I have titanium and I have lead white. The lead white I'll save for the more subtle things. The subtlety. Don't need it right now. Now we're putting in the main planes. Touch of red. See, I put my phone on airplane mode, and for some reason I forgot I'm using my iPad for my chat, and I can't put that on airplane mode obviously, because I need it for the chat. So if you hear any of those little notifications, sorry about that. Putting in a shape, color for the nose. So let me know. Go ahead, comment down below what you use. Feel free to use the live chat now. I am able to see your comments. So let me know what you use. I'm curious. What is that? I'm assuming most of you are going to be using oil paint. Some of you water mixable oil paint. I'm curious what percentage of you are acrylic painters or pastel, or if you use watercolor, gouache. Let me know what you use. I'm kind of curious. See what everyone's doing. This is the part where everything is fast. We haven't approached the awkward stage yet, so it's all fun and energetic and stuff, and it does slow down later on. So just bear with me. These streams will be roughly about 3 hours each. Some may be less, depends on how much is done early on. And of course I have an updated video during I'll take a break every hour, so you're gonna have another video of Hugo, the amazing Shiba Inu. Now that I'm going to be painting something that roughly resembles a mouth, it could start to enter an awkward stage of sorts. Still working with big shapes. Nothing too elaborate here. No little details just yet. I already worked the shapes around the mouth using the transparency of the paint. So nothing new there. I'm just gonna go ahead and build up the planes. A picture like this is really not ideal for a painting, because you're gonna have to alter a lot of stuff. I haven't been to a painting session in a while. I'm gonna have to drive almost 2 hours to go paint with people that I used to paint with when I lived in Maryland. Still on the lookout for any art groups in Northern Virginia. Can't find any. So Uncle Earl, you use water mixable as your choice. Mauve, you use acrylic paints. They're your favorite. Pretty good, pretty good. You can use them all. Not just oil paint. You can do this with acrylic too, everyone. So remember, these streams are free for you to watch and to rewatch after the stream ends. I offer online classes for $10 a month on my Patreon, and I've just basically evolved it to a semester system. So it's a step-by-step guided process that is going to repeat every couple months. But you can join at any time. Start with the beginning project. I give students information or critiques only on the projects. So if you are looking for someone to send pictures of your paintings of your uncle or your best friend in your bowling league or something, then I wouldn't be the right fit for you. But if you're trying to do a guided series of paintings, mostly portraits, that build you up progressively to the point where I will call you apprentice, then online classes are for you. So I'm a little more strict on students now, but it's all for the better good. It's all for the students' benefit. I like to obtain a really dark reddish color with alizarin and black. I could use alizarin and ultramarine, but I like using alizarin and black. Gives me a dark reddish color. If I want it to be more red, then I'll use more alizarin. Alizarin is a very important color for portraiture, and you can get it in acrylic, water mixable, or regular oil paints like I'm using here. Pastel, you have to mix it, although you can buy a color similar to it. I just haven't purchased it yet. For pastel, we're going to keep it limited palette for a little while. Tear ducts. Like I said, we're going to have to edit some things from the picture. So no detail for the eyes just yet. Now oil paint, in comparison to the others, it's a little bit trickier than acrylic in the sense that you have to work wet your first pretty much every session unless you're working on a dry layer. But per painting session, unless you're starting out with a dry painting, then yes, you're working wet into dry just like acrylic. But for starting out like this, it's all wet into wet. So the handling is very critical. You're drawing as you're moving your shapes around. The way that I'm guiding you through this is such that you would be able to paint a model from life. If someone's posing for you and they're in the distance like that, their face is actually going to look that small. So be aware that is going to be a thing. You're not going to have someone pose and their face be right next to you, unless you can afford to hire your own model. Hey, Giorgio, welcome. Thanks for joining. So I'm doing this in such a way that, yes, I know I'm using a photo reference, but I'm trying to show you a way to paint with a reference that will emulate the experience of painting from life. values are very important. You don't want to have too many values too early on, unless you're trying to window shade, finish something one section at a time, which is fine. We've done paintings like that before. But typically groups of 5, as you see here. Think about your composition, how you're going to crop everything. So Catherine, you use acrylic but love watercolor too. Yeah, of course I will experiment with watercolor also. But for the time being, we'll keep acrylic pastel as the other two. And once in a while we'll add something different. Just because we can. Because why not? I just want to show you that the fundamentals are universal no matter what material you use. Now, of course, with acrylics, you cannot work with a palette like this, a dry palette, as easily. And you saw me struggling with it last week. That's because they dry. But there's a simple solution: a stay wet palette, which is likely what I'll use more of in the following weeks. Simple fire hat. At first it's going to look like a Johnny Bravo. If anybody remembers Johnny Bravo. Giving her kind of a Rembrandt hat. Now it's starting to become the Rembrandt hat. So we're working big shapes all around. A little bit more of the red. I'm going to use Neo Megilp Medium. Get the paint to flow a little bit. Now, something in the background will help push this forward. Naturally, I'd be inclined, and I probably will use a cooler color, but maybe not an overly saturated cooler color, probably something just a little darker than this and a tad bit closer to the blue. And I should change brushes, but I'm not. I'm going to use my dark brush. I suggest you have multiple brushes for things like this, and just like with pastel, I'm gonna just mix on the surface here. A little bit of cross disciplines there. And I don't want it to be that that green, so I'm gonna add some red to brown it out slightly. Add the blue. You see how you have to use your imagination with these references? I can't just paint it the way it looks, because it's defeating to recreate the same image that you're looking at. We're setting the stage for the subtlety now. But we want a composition that's inspiring enough to continue to work on this painting. Like I said, I'm mixing on it directly, just like a pastel. And this part's actually no different from a pastel. You're layering, cross-hatching almost, except I don't have to cross-hatch here. And we'll keep that bright green. We'll use it for some artistic liberty here. Composition is totally up to us. The background is important if you're going to be doing a full color painting like this. You want the background to work in comparison to the skin tones, just like if you're painting from life. And just like if you're painting from life, this is not entirely black. So those of you that are younger and are creating a portfolio for school, going to art school, or going to an atelier, teachers can tell if you're working from only from pictures if you leave just straight black for the hair. We could tell right away. Because in real life, we actually see more stuff than the camera does. The camera does a wonderful job of simplifying it. And of course, so does the AI, because now we have to talk about the AIs because they're kind of a thing now. They do a great job of simplifying it and trying to make it look like a photograph, though they can make it look like a painting as well. But even still, we as teachers, we can tell most of the time the difference between someone that has life painting experience versus someone that's copying a picture. See, now I can use all of the values in the environment to help me build a more cohesive, more informed series of skin tones. And all of this has been done in just under 30 minutes. So this is a very practical approach when you're painting from a live model, because at the most you're going to have 30 minutes per sitting, and then of course the model has to stretch, move around, update their Instagrams or whatever that people do. Notice no detail needed just yet. Just trying to get the overall big picture. Nice and simple. Now if it's too yellow, I'll kill it off with a touch of violet. I'm so silly. I was just at the store today and I didn't buy alizarin. Nearly out of it. It's a very important color for portraiture and for almost anything, really. If you want to paint some bright red, Carolina Reaper peppers, like I'm doing a series of paintings of peppers. You're gonna need alizarin, especially for the shadows of anything that's reddish. Now this looks like it's straight white, but it's not. And when it comes to working with values, oil paint is, in my opinion, still easier than acrylic when you're working with a neutral ground. When you're working with a white tone, the white tone of the canvas, then acrylic is easier to build up the darks. So you can do the same stuff, just a different approach, because you want to utilize the white of the canvas for acrylic, and with oil paint you want to utilize the gray of the canvas. Okay, so now question I will ask everybody, and that will be, what is your favorite color? My favorite color is brown. It's always been my favorite color, but let me know what your favorite color is. I don't mean your favorite oil painting, acrylic painting, or whatever color. What's your favorite color? We've got 20 people here, I think. So hopefully we'll get 20 responses. Simple question. Don't be afraid to say hello. These are live sessions and I want you to feel comfortable enough to interact with them, because that's the whole point of the experience. I want you to interact. What's your favorite color? My favorite color has always been brown. My pool cues have always been brown. And I think it might have something to do with one of the dogs that I had growing up was a brown dachshund named Brownie when I was in high school. One thing that's definitely different with oil paint is it glares a lot more. Susan, your favorite color is yellow. Good choice, good choice. I once had a yellow motorcycle for a brief moment. Still just getting by with 2 brushes. These are size 4 bristle brushes. Giselle, turquoise and purple. Awesome. My wife's favorite color is purple. So question for everybody, what is your favorite color? Adding color to the shadows before we start to introduce any details in them. Uncle Earl blue. Very good answer. My first motorcycle was blue. It was like an ultramarine blue. Or back in those days, I would have referred to it more as a Subaru blue. It looked like the blue on the Subarus. Pushing the color a little bit here. Now we're closing in on the subtleties, all in about 39 minutes, pretty fast. I don't think I'm this efficient with the other materials yet, although I did take a long time last week with the oil painting. A little rusty. I'll admit it. I was a little rusty last week. And I still am a tad bit rusty. As we do more of these streams, I'll improve a little more. A little improvement here, a little improvement there. And these paintings will be for sale. I'll also do a whole other series of still life and landscape that I'll have for sale. And I'll announce the paintings that I'll be selling later on this week. Not today though, not today. Okay, now we've earned the right to do stuff for the eyes. And we're just at the 40 minutes, so let's go ahead and see if we can keep using the same brush. Same two brushes. If I'm lucky, I don't have to clean any extra brushes today. I'm going to use lead white. Oh man, I was going to use lead white. It did start to dry. That's no good. Still have enough of it though. So it does dry faster than titanium. Titanium is not even close to dry. As far as keeping lead white on a piece of glass in your freezer, make sure that you don't put anything remotely near the palette And if you can't, then just put it in some kind of Tupperware and just close it shut so that there's no oxygen there. Here's where the awkward stage will emerge. It goes from looking peaceful to looking like a demon, and all about 2 brush strokes. That's all it takes. And then we work our way out of the awkward stage, and then I have to fight my case for why this is an oil painting and not a photograph. All these different stages in a painting. At first, it's big stages, all this energetic stuff. Then it starts to get awkward, and I have to remind you, like, it's okay. We're gonna go and add the subtlety back in there, and then I'm gonna have to remind you that it's not a photograph. I'm not trying to make it look like a photograph. So yada yada, same kind of explanation as I always give. At least you'll always have consistency from me. Giselle, are you switching 3 brushes, dark, mediums, and lights? I really should, but I just have 2 right now. These are just size 4 Silverbrush Grand Prix bristles. I used these brushes yesterday. I did tell you I'm starting a series of still lifes. One of the series is going to be a painting of peppers, so I worked on this yesterday. It's not finished, but I used these 2 brushes for this. So that's why if you go back to the beginning of the painting, there was some paint already on the brush. But these are Carolina Reapers that I'm doing a painting of. Once I finish it, I'll have it for sale, and I'll do another one. So different paintings of peppers for anyone that likes peppers. They won't be too expensive. Not super expensive. Tap it of blue, although you won't be able to see it. And yes, I know it's gonna look a little strange once we add smaller shapes like the iris and whatnot. Back to the alizarin, not that we have much of it left. I'm gonna add some Neo McGilp onto the brush. And if you're saying Neo what? It is a medium that obviously I can't put on here because it's gonna drip. It's a gel-like medium. I think the term is thixotropic, meaning it's a jelly. Whatever. It is a medium that allows you to thin out the paint, but not have to eat away at the paint like you do with mineral spirits. Alright, so here's the part where it starts to slow down a little bit. And there will be a noticeable exodus from the live stream. So those of you that are watching this live currently and are interested or engaged in these paintings, I'm going to ask for your help because I need to have a conversation with you. So I'm going to be doing a series of paintings that I will be selling, separate from what you're going to see me doing on YouTube. Though I could do some of them on YouTube also. But I want to know, those of you that do have an interest in art, like owning art, what subject matter would you like to be displayed in your home? What do you personally like? For me, I would be interested in portraits that were painted by my teachers. But that's because I am a portrait painter. But maybe you might have an interest in something like boats or something. I have no clue. But those of you that are still here, let's engage in this conversation because you could very well ask me to paint something and I will paint it and I'll probably give it to you at a discount just because you told me to paint it. So let me know what it is. And I'm having this conversation with you right now during this stage of the painting because this stage of the painting tends to be the most boring for most people. And thank you so much for those of you that have left a like. I really appreciate it. And thank you for those of you that are still watching this live, and thank you for those of you that are watching this after it was recorded. Now, how can I avoid going into smaller brushes now? I don't really know, but the shapes surrounding the eyes, all I've got to do really is change the value and the color. It's a tad bit too dark and too blue. Don't be afraid of the tear bag or the shape underneath of the eyes. I know that it's a little bit risky because it tends to make people look a little bit tired, but this is a necessary shape. And don't be afraid to tell me if you like paintings, subject matter like flowers or like figures. You know, like Peter Paul Rubens looking figures. I can do that too. There's almost really nothing that I won't paint except for abstracts. Unless you really want those, then I'm going to have to learn it. Another thing for me to learn. So mixing wet into wet, I'm going to have to make this a tad bit lighter, mixing directly onto the shape here. You can do this, the same process with water mixable oil paint, but with acrylic you will have to mix the exact value that you need. You can't mix directly onto this with acrylic, as it would already be dry. A little more color in the shadow. Now we're free to add some subtlety to the mouth. Only add subtlety to the lips when you are absolutely certain that the eyes and the nose are in the relatively correct place. As always, I'm probably going to have to move the mouth up a little bit, so I'm going to anticipate that by starting to move the lower lip up, which will push the middle of the lip up that way, keeping these somewhat down, which is kind of more of a classical simplification. I said alizarin is a really important color, and it's pretty bad that I'm almost out of it. Might actually be out of it. Okay, Susan, you wrote you like portraits and open plains with a farmhouse. Good idea there. Open plains farmhouse. All right. Start to look up the farmhouses. No problem there. Uncle Early like portraits, western scenes, shapes, and sunsets. Okay. I really appreciate the feedback. I will certainly paint some of those images, perhaps even during a live stream. There's certainly a possibility. Still using the two brushes, by the way. I haven't had to add a new one just yet. And I really appreciate getting the feedback from all of you, because as a painter, I'm kind of in my own little world, and I think most of us might be able to relate. And it's important to expand your horizons, to not just paint one similar subject for every single painting. So it's good to have a variety, to do a variety of different things. For example, pastel is the newest material that I'm using. Is teaching me a lot about mixing directly on the surface. A lot about layering with colors, and working with planes in a more analytical sense. And I'm not one for systematic color, but typically if you can sneak a little bit of green underneath of the lips like that, it kind of, I don't know, it emphasizes the red in a certain way. Don't be afraid to add these shapes. At first it is going to make the model look tired, but these shapes are important to build. And yeah, of course, I barely have any of this red, so I'm going to use it sparingly as she has a slight smile, not a huge smile. Typically with references, be careful with the smiley pictures. If the reference is too smiley, typically not a good idea. An overly smiley reference will look obviously photographed, like it was painted from a picture, as opposed to naturalistic look, as opposed to a more naturalistic look. These are things to be aware of. And again, pushing a little bit of green. And we're just about to reach the hour. So remember, I take a break every hour. So in about a minute, I'm going to take a break and you're going to get to watch the new video of Hugo, the Shiba Inu. And maybe in the following weeks, I'll do something painting related. For anyone that might be getting tired of Hugo's videos, which, why would you? Wouldn't make any sense in the world. So, Giselle, how are you adjusting your new setup? Does it improve the painting perspective? I've adjusted to it enough. The camera is a tad bit annoying because I can't, like you see here, I can't really move my head that close. But it's actually a good thing because it keeps me further away from the painting. But it does create some challenges, I will say, that I still have to adapt to. But overall, I enjoy the simplicity of it all, especially with the oil painting because I'm able to just mix right here for you. With the acrylic, it's a little bit difficult. With a pastel, you don't need a palette anyway. But with the acrylic, it's difficult because it drips. If I were to use a stay wet palette here, it would drip. So it's more of a challenge for the acrylic side than it is the oil painting side. But thank you for the question. I appreciate it. So we are just about to reach the first break. These videos will be roughly 3 hours long, with one break every hour. So we are just now about to reach the first break in right about now. So I'll be back in a little bit. I will leave a video playing for you. A video I made this week of Hugo. And when I return, we will continue working on the painting. Okay, I'm back just after Hugo was just doing the CPR chest compressions. But anyway, hopefully that was somewhat entertaining while I took a slight, I just made sure I stretched my neck, my back, my arms. It's just good to stretch. I would definitely suggest you take a break every, say like every 30 minutes to an hour. Still using the same two brushes. Mostly utilizing the titanium white today. Now we're gonna enter the subtleties. And that video of Hugo, by the way, is much longer than that. So maybe next break I'll move it to that spot where it left off. So I'm using the colors already on the palette to mix these more subtle planes, very subtle, this slight smile that the model has, but not too much. That's why I chose this picture, because the smile wasn't that strong. Now think about planes. The closer the plane is to being perpendicular to the light source, the brighter it's going to be. The closer you can get to simply visualizing the planes in 3D, the better, as opposed to just a flat photograph. This part is exceptionally difficult working from a photograph. From a live model, you can just walk around and see exactly what angle these planes are. Not so simple to do, and in fact impossible to do with a photo reference. I'll never say never. You'll probably get an AI to do that for you one of these days. And even still, it probably won't be that exact. So now I'm going to do a slight drawing correction. I'm going to move the eyebrows down. And I first start by making the eyebrows too thick. Which, to be honest, I think looks better anyway, but it's not the aesthetic of this particular setup. Now, if I can use it, this is where the lead white will be most useful. If I can get even some of the lead white, which it has this ability to, it basically thickens it makes the paint thicker. So I can add more paint without raising the value too much. So that was perfect there, that shape. Alright, pretty good. Now we'll do the adjustment on the top of the eyebrows. Change the color around, why not? We'll push this plane a little darker. Adding more and more subtlety. Like I said, drawing correction. So moving the eyebrows lower. All this is much easier to do when your paint is thicker, because you just like that, kind of push it around. That's how you paint wet into wet. Again, if you're using acrylic, then you don't need to worry about it. It's already dry. Water mixable oil paints, the same thing. Pastel, completely different thing. You're layering it by hatching, cross hatching. Those are little drawing corrections, and I'm pretty sure that mistake is due to me just being too close to the painting, and I am sitting, so the more you sit and paint, the more likely you will make mistakes, drawing wise, as opposed to standing and moving around. But that can easily be changed if you're sitting and you're able to just move your seat back. But I just probably didn't stand back enough or sit back enough. I know not everyone can stand back, but if you're able to sit back more frequently, that will help with your drawing. So Sally wrote, such delicacy in your touch and brushwork, expressive even in your correction. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And everyone, you develop a feel for these kind of this kind of brushwork. You'll develop a feel for it. Now with subtlety, it's not about how many values can you fit into a plane, but how specific the values that you use are. So the whole virtue of quality over quantity. You don't need a ton of value changes for this to read across the room, or in my case, as a thumbnail. So quality over quantity. You don't need that many values, but the ones that you do use have to be as precise as they can be. That's the whole challenge with subtlety. It's not easy, but it gets easier over time. Tad bit darker. Remember, we're mixing wet into wet, but there's not much paint in this particular spot. so I don't need that much. Change the hue a little bit, going towards the yellow-green. Subtlety. What is the exact curvature of this plane? You have to have a understanding of the value range. You develop this skill over time. You have to be brave enough to make mistakes, patient enough to acknowledge the mistakes, because it's going to happen as part of it all. The curvature was not correct at first. It never is. Patience is also something you build in painting. At least it is for most. Depending on how long a painting is, how long the painting takes, whether it takes days, weeks, months, years, you find that you end up returning to certain paintings over time. So patience is something that you build. If you feel like you don't have the patience just yet, you will if it's something that you want to develop. What I suggest, this is what I suggest to all my students, is that you have a balance between long pose and short pose. And of course I'm using terminology of life painting when I say pose, but long-term studies, balancing your short-term. So for example, I've got, I think right now only one long-term studio painting that I'm doing. But even with things like a face, like you need to be able to spend about 40 hours on a face in order to improve how well you paint in 40 minutes. Do you follow me? So let's see, Giselle, you wrote, have you ever demonstrated yourself doing a self-portrait or done one? Yeah, I've done that before. A couple times. I could do another one. It is a little challenging with my mirror, setting up a mirror, but it's possible. Oh right, when you do a self-portrait, I will always recommend that you use a mirror. Don't do a self-portrait from a picture, because that would defeat the point of doing a self-portrait. So use a mirror. And I know that can be quite difficult to set up. Trust me, I know it's a difficult thing to set up with your lighting and all that stuff. But yeah, I've done a self-portrait live stream before. I appreciate all questions. We're gonna move all the way back up towards the nose now. Yeah, I know. Using the mirror is difficult, especially when you have to remember what your pose was, because you're always turning your head when you're using a mirror. Yeah, the lighting would have to be consistent. Yes, for a self-portrait, the best thing to do is to set up a light that is not directly flashing into your eyes. So make sure that the light is set up so that you're not looking directly at the light source. That's why you see a lot of self-portraits. There's usually not a highlight on the iris or on the pupil, for that matter. Has anyone here done a self-portrait before? I was curious. Who here has done a self-portrait? When I add planes like this, I typically overdo them and then bring them back. But I overdo them at first to make them more obvious, make the plane changes more obvious. So Uncle Elo, you wrote, yes, eyes, why too big? Don't, just see, did done about 8-9 years ago. Oh, cool. 8-9 years ago. I think, yeah, I did a self-portrait about 10 years ago too. So, yeah, it's been a lot of self-portraits over the years. I guess I'll not worry about the skill level. Yeah, cool. It's good to do them. They are very, very helpful because you get to paint from life and you don't have to pay a model fee. Susan, you tried, but okay, no worries. They're not easy to do, but they are one of the best skill building exercises you can do. This is the glabella, adding a tad bit more subtlety with it. Of course, lead white in this area is very useful. Okay. So the mouth is a little different. And let's see if I have enough alizarin to correct it. Might be just enough in here. And what it is, it's just a tad bit more flat up here. More flat. Now I'm gonna have to use the skin tone to adjust the opposite side. Side opposite to here is down here. Now we can start to add a shadow color for the nose. That was pretty much just the initial value that I put there. Hey Jonas, welcome, welcome. The start of this one was a little bit faster than before. So we've got a lot done. So I can't imagine this will go the full 3 hours, but we'll see. A little bit of reflected light, even though it's not there in the picture. I know there'd be some reflected light. I'll use some red right here. For reflected lights, try as much as you can to use a hue change rather than only a value change, so you don't lose your shadow. This side of the palette tends to have the cooler skin colors. This tends to have the warmer ones. It just ended up working out that way. And you see I'm using the entire palette. And mark L. Now we're going to start to key the lights. These are the lighter, cooler skin tones. This will exist somewhere over here. And now that we're keying the lights, we're adding the brightest lights, but still make sure there's a color associated to it. And we'll change it around just for the sake of nuance in the colors for the opposite side. Same value, different hue, though you can't really tell the difference because of the camera. Now this light will exist on the nose, but first, of course, drawing. Go back to the cooler colors. And when you're keying the lights, it's always useful to have just still one more register lighter you can go. So this is, yes, these are my lightest lights, but it's not the lightest value possible with color. So there's straight white, then there's one step down, which is not what I have here, and then there's one step down from that. So that's where this is. So white, one step down, two steps down. So this is two steps down. A little two step. Two steps down. Though it looks really bright because of my camera, but it's not that bright. And of course, same thing for the nose. We'll just borrow this one, make it a tad bit more pink. Still can get lighter. Say from Jonas, you wrote, when a picture is really dark and you can't see all the details, is it then down to the artist's knowledge to know everything is, so to speak, and improvise. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's one of the problems with working from photo references is you're almost always going to have to improvise. So if you don't have the experience working from life, then there's nothing to improvise with. So it makes it more difficult. So in that instance, that's where it's better to do a series of studies from the old masters if you're not able to do life painting. And even when you do life painting, it's important to do studies from the old masters as well, but you don't need to do it as much when you have access to painting from live models. So yes, exactly. You have to improvise. Of course, I had to improvise with this. It's a matter of just the information that's not there, and I can't replicate. I don't want to replicate the picture, so I have to be clever in the sense that I improvise, just like you said. Gotta improvise. So exactly correct. That's why it's so difficult to work from pictures like this. That's why with my students I have a step-by-step with the old masters and with pictures that I took myself years ago. So for example, take a simple, not so simple, but one that's less scratched up than this one. But take a Rembrandt, for example, and maybe this is not the best one, but you can transfer that knowledge plane wise, the handling of these planes, transfer that knowledge onto your own paintings. And of course, this is a demo, so it's still not quite at that level, but you can transfer that knowledge. So I don't have any other ones close to me, but it's important to have a balance there. Would you suggest using a 3D plane head to work on before you work with portraits? Honestly, before working with portraits, I think the best would be to draw from the old masters or to do a self-portrait. The 3D plane head is good, but only to memorize the planes. So if you didn't memorize the basic planes of the face, then consider the plane head an extra exercise. It's always something good to do at any skill level, but it's not necessarily something you need to do right before starting a portrait. It's more of an exercise in the knowledge you need for the basic planes, because you adjust the basic planes after you know what they are. So for the cheekbone, the glabella, the forehead, the frontal eminence, which is basically not even there with this model. So planes like that. Okay, so now we're gonna jump into the smaller brushes. I didn't think I would, but it might help to do that now. I'm gonna use, I was gonna use Sables, but I'm gonna stick with these cheaper. These are just acrylic brushes that I shouldn't be using for oil paint, but it is what it is. Yeah, that wasn't smart. So I'm gonna keep my other acrylic brushes away from my oil paints. So yeah, anyway, I'm gonna use this to balance my hand. Luckily these are cheap. These are from Michael's. I bought them specifically for the acrylics. And these don't really hold a lot of paint, so you have to really charge them pretty well. The best thing to do is to use a sable for this. And I can still use this for acrylic, I just have to clean it really well. Like, deep clean it. I'm glad you like the explanation, Jonas. So there comes a time where we need to add lots of subtlety now to make the thing look really round. Like we used to call it, make the thing look like the thing. So don't think of it as a person. Don't think of this painting as a person, because that's a trap. Especially if you're painting somebody that you know, which I don't recommend you do. At least not for a skill building exercise. If it can be avoided. Oh, no thanks. I mean, I got enough detail with the big brushes, but you know, for like shapes like this, I'm gonna need the smaller brushes for sure. And trust me, the only reason I used the bigger brushes so much was because I didn't feel like cleaning a smaller brush. But I'm gonna have to clean this smaller brush now anyway. The ideal brush to use for detail in oil paint is a sable, because it can hold more paint and still apply a soft touch like this synthetic. But I'm showing that you can also do this with a cheaper brush. Probably won't last as long as the sable, but still gets the job done. And it's going to be tricky, but this same value needs to be in the eyelid to our right. I don't think you'll be able to really see it on the camera though. Now of course we can sharpen up the eyebrows. This is more just a cosmetic thing. basically just like adding makeup on someone's face. Same concept. What would I know? I mean, I don't know anything about that, but I would assume it's the same. I can only suppose. I don't know. See there, it really doesn't carry as much paint as a sable, but it's okay. It works. It works, it works. Make sure that the eyebrows don't look painted on, even though we're painting them on. The way to do that, to avoid it looking painted on, is to avoid it looking like there was a Sharpie that just made a mark. And then there was the eyebrow. The way to, so make the end darker here. Make this darker than this, and this darker than this. See, I did the same thing there, somewhat. And then what you want to do is add some of the skin tone right above the eyebrow, so that it looks like it's a soft edge above the eyebrow. Even though in fashion this is supposed to be sharp, if you overdo that, it's going to look painted on. So here's where all the subtlety is going to happen. And I call this the impossible subtleties in my classes because they seem impossible, but they're not impossible. And it's all the stuff that you don't really see from a distance. So most of this is theoretical as opposed to observed. But it does transfer back into observed. So you're going back and forth between a theoretical, painting what you know, and then painting what you see. You're going back and forth between the two, not necessarily focusing on only just one. You can't always only paint what you see. If you do that, you're limiting yourself. And if you're only painting what you know, then, well, you already know. You're painting something that's completely not there. So there has to be a balance. And when you're working with a photo reference like this, unfortunately, a lot of times you have to paint more of what you know than what you see. Alright, so we're about to take a break really soon. And this will be the last break that we take. When we return, we will wrap this painting up with more subtleties. So while we're on the break, for those of you that are still here, anyone that might be new to these live streams, I will be playing a video in between the break so that it's not just the screen paused and everybody wondering where I am. So the video will be of my Shiba Inu Hugo and some of his wonderful tricks. And yep, I will return in just a few minutes, probably just 2 minutes or so, just to walk around and stretch. So I'll be right back. Okay, I have returned, and yeah, tomorrow you'll get to watch the rest of the video. So you're probably about halfway through that one video. So we will get back to that. Oh, some dog training tips. Well, the first thing I would say is I'm definitely no expert. I don't have the experience as a dog trainer as I do as a painter. So any advice I can give anyone on dog training is purely based on my own experience with Hugo. But I did grow up with dogs all my life. I grew up with Dobermans, so I already was accustomed to life with doggies. The best thing I can say really is try the most you can to be positive and calm around the doggies. They can pick up any kind of anger and frustration. Punishment doesn't work with dogs. It really doesn't. It seems like it works, but it really doesn't. So like look up like positive reinforcement training as opposed to say pack mentality, which pack mentality is kind of old and antiquated from what I've researched. But yeah, I'm no expert in that field though. Anyone here that has dog training certifications and stuff will know more. Hugo's always been a very unique kind of dog. We got him at 11 months, and I started training him right away. When he was 5 months old, he had a lot of those tricks. He has some new ones ever since then. Still working on some other ones, but repetition, training with treats as opposed to punishment, and they can be very, very surprising. But most of it is just being calm and positive, the way you talk to them, don't yell at them. I do want to at some point in my life get certified as a trainer. I do want to do that, and maybe volunteer in some shelters or something. That's an idea, but anyway, being as positive as you can. No yelling, being patient, introduce things in small pieces of information, not trying to do a whole lot right away. Like the subtleties of the face here, like I'm not going to just jump into fully rendering a face without having some kind of plan for the bigger shapes. So I know this is a part that's kind of long and tedious and boring for a lot of people, so I would appreciate any kind of, if you've got any questions about anything really, you could ask me about dog training also, how to potty train and things like that. I mean, any kind of conversation you'd like to have with me during this last session on this painting, feel free to ask. I know there's only about half of you still here now. I know the time is not perfect for everyone, so I apologize for that. But remember, the schedule is Wednesday oil painting, Thursday acrylic, and Friday pastel. And on some Saturdays, not every Saturday of course, but some Saturdays we'll have pre-recorded videos, shorter. I know 3 hours is a lot for many, but I do recommend you play these videos as you're painting. There was a question somebody had I need to respond to, but the question was more directed towards all of you. Do you play these videos and try to paint along, or like how do you basically use them? And now I would suggest you have this playing on the background as you're painting. You could paint the same painting if you want to, and I would love to see it. That's always fun. this stage is a lot easier with thicker paint being underneath. So the fact that I started out with adding color right away, I mean in the first 15 minutes I already added color here, is really helpful because now that I'm adding smaller shapes, they stick a little bit more because the paint underneath is not drying because it is oil paint, but it's a thicker layer that allows a sable brush or a synthetic brush to easily glide over top of the thicker paint. If that makes any sense. Angela. I know, right? I think this is the same model, and I don't think it's the same reference, but same model from a painting we did in 2020. I know, I need to go and take pictures of real people and paint them. I'm sure this person is real, but like someone that I know or have met at least. Hey Susan. Oh wow. 1:10, I'm assuming in the morning. Thanks for staying here. Thanks for sticking along. I'm so happy to have you here, Susan. Giselle, you wrote, have you ever worked with, have you worked this before? Your progress seems quicker than others. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, this model we've painted, I'm pretty sure in 2020 there was a similar painting to this one. But over time, I've just become a little bit more efficient with just painting in general. In 2020, it used to take me a week. So 3-hour sessions, so like 9 hours to get to this point. And now I always say if you can put 40 hours into a painting, it will improve what you can do in 40 minutes. So you really do have a window to see into the future of your painting as you're balancing your long-term studies and your short-term studies, all in conjunction with paintings from the old masters. But thank you for that comment. But you know, competition's tough here on YouTube. It's a lot tougher than it was back in 2019 or 2020. So I've got to sharpen my skills, especially with other materials. So Mav, you wrote, in case you suddenly, let's see. I don't know why I can't, oh, there we go. Suddenly stop, I'd like to thank you for another, oh, thank you. Thanks, Mav. And I'll be here same time tomorrow with acrylic. Yeah, probably another, I don't know, 15 to 20 minutes is all I think I'd need with this one. Of course, I want to do more for the hair, but most of the demo is for here. I really appreciate you all. But I really have been actively trying to improve on what I can do in 3 hours. What I can do in a short period of time. Trying to stay relevant here on YouTube, so it's tough to do. Hey, Mom, awesome. It'll be great to have you tomorrow for acrylics. And I gotta figure out what to do with my camera because I really need to use the Stay Wet palette. The dry palette is just it's a tad bit too much. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I appreciate everyone here watching these live. Let me know in the comments, of course, if you're watching this afterwards, how you're enjoying or not enjoying the addition of the acrylic and the pastel. I don't have anywhere near as much experience with acrylic and pastel, and I'll make that more. I'll verbalize it to you more often, especially with pastel because I am learning it myself as I'm demonstrating it. So it's not like with oil paint where I've got 14 or 15 years experience with it. It's really something that I'm picking up, but my theory is that the fundamentals are universal. So you'll notice as I start to improve, hopefully, with the other materials. So, but let me know what you think. How you like the balance between oil paint, acrylic, and pastel. And I know it's only the second week. But I really did struggle more than I should have. I feel like I should have on Friday with the pastel. And even though I did enough practice, I thought it was enough practice, but it's never enough. But I'll be sharpening my skills to give you a better experience here. Angela, oh, you're learning watercolor now. Awesome. Yep, that's one I'm gonna start to experiment with soon also. Watercolor. It's fun to break out of your comfort zones from time to time. Alright, so let's go ahead and start to add stuff for the hair. I'll fix this little shape here. Add some more stuff for the hair. I really enjoy the darks that you can get with alizarin plus black or alizarin plus ultramarine. And I already placed those values in there. And they haven't sunken in, thankfully, so I'm going to leave them there. Since I don't have that much alizarin left, I got to go to the store again. Any kind of, if you like the videos or Just watch them more often. And anything you do will definitely help make it more manageable for me to buy materials to do these things for you. I appreciate all the support. And soon I'll be selling some paintings. I won't forget the suggestion or the idea for the farmhouse or the barn. And let me see what the other one was. Open plains, farmhouse, western scenes, sunsets. So I won't forget. Caselli wrote, love learning with you as well. As from you as you explore other mediums. Of course. Thanks for joining along for the ride. It's gonna be ups and downs. Learning these new materials. The hat I'll just kind of leave as is. Kind of like it how obscure it is. Now we'll use the skin tone to add light to the hair. This is a trick that I've used for years. The hair itself should have planes as well. This whole thing is one plane now. So Angela wrote, my theory is to use quick drying material to plan a composition. That's a good idea. Yeah, the quick drying stuff helps you kind of like think with paint a little bit. I like the idea. Can't wait to see what you're up to. Guess I wrote, heard using alcohol or water with acrylic paint help the drying time. Well, yeah, using water. I don't know about alcohol. I've never tried using alcohol with acrylic before. That's something I would definitely have to experiment off camera, of course, before doing that on camera. But yeah, to be honest, I like the drying time that the acrylics that I'm using have. So it's not really that, it's the palette that's giving me trouble, because I tried to use a dry palette, like one like this, and the paints are just unusable, and then I have to end up remixing things that I would have had available with a wet palette. So it's more with the palette. Maybe a tad bit more color in the background, a little less green. Not a skin color like that, but I want to do something with it. And I just kind of feel like it needs to be a little different. Gray it out, but still keep it green. It's just less green. These are things you just end up feeling out. Yeah, that works just fine. Alright, so it fits the vignette that I wanted. Of course, this one went by a lot faster, probably because we went into color almost right away in the start of this one. So I'll do some little touch-ups here and there, and then sign it, photograph it, and then this painting will be up for sale some point soon. Just fixing this bottom shape. Remember, this is a 9 by 12. It is a cotton canvas panel. So I'll be selling the acrylics and the oil paintings, but not so much the pastels, because I don't know how in the world they're going to survive transit. But I'll figure something out with that. Then I'll do some paintings on the side. And make those available to you as well. And we use the gray of the canvas a lot. I mean, there's some of it left here, 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 here. So we use the tone of the canvas a lot here. But I think this one went well. Not too many struggles with it. I didn't struggle too much with it this time. Let's see, Timba. I'm not sure what language that is. I apologize for. I don't know what the question is. The chat, I don't know how to use the chat to translate. Something I gotta learn how to do. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and sign it and photograph it. So this will be the point where I'll ask if there are any last minute questions. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow, same time, for an acrylic painting. Yeah, this one went pretty fast. Well, 30 minutes faster than last week. So sign it on the bottom left. I have to use a sable actually. Or I could wait to sign it. There's no rush in signing it right away. Team, but oh, okay, you responded to Susan. No problem. It's all good. It's all good. See if I can sign this or not. See, the Sable brush is just so much more control with a Sable. So I'm just using black and Neo McGill to sign it. This is your chance to ask any questions before we sign out. So I'll photograph it tonight and make it available for whoever wants it. Thanks, Timba. Thank you. Thanks, Giselle. And there's something special about the wet on wet signature where you can see that it wasn't, you know, like this was signed and the name you can barely read it, but you know it's my name because I always sign the I with a little dash, and not too many people with this name sign with this dash, and so you'll know who painted it when you add this to your collection. You'll know, and you'll have a video associated to it. So I'm saying hi to you in the future. I know you own this painting and you're showing it to your friends. You want me to do the same one in acrylics tomorrow? I could do that, but I don't want to bore people with the same image. I could do a poll if you want, if I use the same image in acrylics. I don't want to bore people with it. But it would make my life a lot easier to use the same reference. Oh man. Hey Mauve. Let's see. Oh, I'm glad you like the little tweaks to the hair. Thank you. Thanks, Uncle Earl. I could create a poll, see if you want me to paint this again tomorrow, but I'm assuming that, and I shouldn't assume, but I'm assuming that most of you would want me to paint a different model in acrylics. I was looking for a reference with more color, like maybe like some kind of neon colors or something, a little bit unpredictable. So I think that would be more interesting to most of you, I'm assuming. Yeah. Glad you like the hair. Remember, these brushes, I'm not sponsored by this company, so these are Silverbrush Cat's Tongue size 4. Cat's Tongue, the shape, it is not made by Cat's Tongues, of course, but the shape itself is like it's like a round, it's like a filbert but pointy. These are the best brushes to use for subtle detail work, period. You can get by without them. I did over here, but it's a lot harder. I couldn't even sign my name with a synthetic brush. It just wouldn't apply the paint. This, on the other hand, not sponsored by this company, but telling you these are the best of the best. But you only want to use these brushes for oil paint. Traditional or water mixable, you only want to use these with oil paint. Do not use a sable brush for acrylic because there is no need to hold that much paint to have a subtle touch because it's wet into dry anyway. So signing would be easy, super easy with acrylic because it's wet into dry. But in any case, I got some cleaning up to do. And comment down if you want me to paint the same model. Maybe we won't do it this time, but we can do it again next week. We did that last week. Painted the same model with acrylic that we did with oil paint. So we'll see. We'll see what you want me to do. So you wrote, although it was good to see the differences between oil and acrylic painting of the same photo last week, prefer a different photo. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that it might be better to do a different one. Maybe one with like more color or something like that. Something like that. That's what I was kind of thinking. So yeah, we'll do something like that. So remember the schedule, everybody. The schedule is the same time every day, 4:00 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Wednesday is oil paint. Thursday is acrylic paint. Friday is pastel paint. So you'll definitely be able to catch one of those live streams, if not hopefully all of them. And I don't like this shape here. Last minute adjustment. Okay, problem solved, I think. Alright, so either way, thank you so much for watching. Whether you're more interested in one of the mediums more than the other, I appreciate all of your feedback on my videos. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you the very best in all of your artwork. I'll see you on the next one.